Honor to the Lord.
Amen.
And understanding that my father was not just a great man, but he was an educator, he was a great pastor, he was a great leader. And almost everything that he done, it was great. He coined a couple of phrases. One was tomorrow happened yesterday, and we're 3 days behind. As he always operated with the energy that everyone has spoken about. Another one that he said was, success is in the efforts, and the results belong to God. And that one there carried me through college, and probably most of us as children carried us through a lot of difficult times. But I've only been given 3 minutes to speak, and I'm wondering if you guys will allow me 3 minutes. If you would, just raise your hand real quick. Oh, good. There's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Praise God. Thank you for all the time that you just allowed. My father opened his last public speech with that joke as he was being honored at RCC as Alumnus of the Year in 2010. I wrote a poem back in 1992, and I'm speaking for the louder children. And I wrote a poem, though, that's so apropos for this time, and it was called As Long as I Can Bring Him Back. I want to read it to you. It says, a dream so strong allowed me to see what it would be like to lose him. I'm glad I woke to reality from such a dream so grim. Only a dream of death during sleep could cause such an impact that when I awoke with tears streaming down, I just wished I could bring him back. In the dream, he was taken away without a reason why. I asked my friends and family, but they didn't want to try. I wondered to myself, why not? As reality struck my heart, I continued to deny his death. I just didn't want to part. I asked myself, what would he do if he were alive and I were dead? He wouldn't wait a second to call them together and lay his hands upon my head. But what if he didn't want to live? This question continually thrown in my face. But even in a dream, I knew this man, he'd really want to finish this race. During the dream, acceptance began. The pain turned to frustration then. Because I knew this death couldn't be this man, he had to win. 70 years God promises us, and with a good body even more. I calculated his age in my head. At that time, he wasn't even 44. In my dream, I looked around, and my mom's eyes caught mine. The expression she had on her face, I knew that it was time. But in the dream, I knew what to do, but I woke before it happened. I woke from the dream crying and hurt. My heart had just been flattened. As reality began to speak to me and tell me it was just a dream, I thought back for a quick second and couldn't believe how real it seemed. I called my dad while I thought to myself, wow, what was this attack? When he picked up the phone, I smiled and said, as long as I can bring him back. I want to thank Mayor Loveridge and the city of Riverside in honoring my father by naming the street after him and allowing us to know that our name, me as the namesake and the rest of the louder children, we can drive by or on this street. We can drive by on this street, we can have him back. Each and every time we see it, we can look up and know that our Father still exists in many hearts and many minds and in many thoughts. I just thank God, as my niece was saying, my father was my hero. Many times people would ask me as a young man, who's your hero? Who do you want to be like? And I would always respond, Dr. Martin Luther King and Jerry Lauder. A hero is a person who typically is a man who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievement, or noble qualities. There are characteristics of a hero. One of them is courage. Courage and bravery leap to mind first when we think of heroism. And it definitely makes me think of my father. Selflessness. True leaders always put others first. And he did that for his entire life.
Yes, he did.
Humility. Nothing makes a heroic leader seem a little less heroic than if he or she seems to want constant credit for his or her actions. But he never did that. He never did. He always gave credit away.
That's right.
Qualities of a hero. They put others before themselves, they pay dearly for their courage, and they often go years, if ever, without the recognition that they deserve. Today we want to say thank you to the city of Riverside and to Mayor Loveridge, for he has been recognized and will be forever. They're selfless. True leaders always put others first. Ironically, that kind of selflessness can often be strategic, because focusing on others' needs often winds up helping you achieve your own goals. However, a heroic leader does so without any expectation or payback. He was caring. Separate from selflessness, heroic leaders display a sense of concern and kindness for others. This can often manifest itself in strong and gentle actions intended to improve the lives of others. We know that he did that. Because my father was a true hero, not only to me, but to many others who called him dad, called him pastor, and simply called him when they needed him. Like some churches in the area. I remember when he got a call from a local church that needed his assistance because the church was having some difficulty getting the permits that they needed to build where they wanted to. I've never been so proud as I watched my father speak to the city council with such eloquence and sophistication, using words that I've never heard before. And some of the council hadn't either. But he did it in defense of what he believed in, the church. My father fought for what he believed in, the Word of God, which he gave his life for in the city of Riverside. I remember when he got the call about the injustice of the Taisha Miller murder. It was his hope that he could help calm the city and get justice quickly so that the city wouldn't be torn apart and or look bad.
Yes.
He had a concern for the city of Riverside and all of its residents. He was my hero. He was so selfless that he and my mother spent their entire lives in the ministry, and he would never leave Riverside to start a church anywhere else.
That's right.
It was about Riverside. When he spoke about OIC, I remember hearing him say that he was the cog in the wheel that brought Flex Steel and Roar and other big businesses to our city to help the disenfranchised people of Riverside find work.
Yes.
I remember when he spoke about the Lord's Kitchen, which he started right here.
Yes.
He spoke about feeding people, but he cared so much for the people of Riverside that he said he was not going to start a soup kitchen, but he wanted to be sure that those who were struggling would receive at least one hot meal a day.
Yes.
He cared. He was so humble that he would not allow his name to be honored without also honoring the Lord and his wife who he grew up with. It was never about him. It was always about others. Two scriptures come to mind. But even before I say that, standing here just reminds me of the outdoor revival we had right there in the grass before the building was built. And it caused all the people in the area to find New Jerusalem Christian Center. The outdoor revival where many of you came to know who he was. We saw miracles happen out there in the grass.
Yes.
We saw people get saved out there on the grass.
Yes.
We saw lives get changed out there in the grass.
Amen.
And then he built this wonderful structure
That's
that
right.
stands behind us. Gave his life so that others might be helped and assisted and fed, housed, have jobs. He gave his life helping others. Two scriptures come to mind when I think about my father, my hero. One, Hebrews 11:11. It says, which my father began, before that, which my father, he began to quote when tough times came about.
Yes.
It says, through faith, also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. And it began to coin a phrase in our house, 11:11.
11:11. That's right.
Every time we have to depend and trust in the Lord. 11:11. 11:11. For we judge him faithful who had promised that we would make it through. Every single time. 11:11. He'd say 11:11. For he had judged God faithful for promising him all that he promised. And then two, As you heard earlier, 2 Timothy 4, 6 through 8. It says, "For I am now ready to be offered.
My God.
At the time of my for the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought the good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day." I know he's got his crown on. "And not to me only, but all them that love his appearing." For me, by naming the street after my father and us children, I feel like he can rest now, because he will never be forgotten. When people want to know how to get to Dewey and don't know, they put in their GPS. Reverend Jerry Louder Drive has to come up. When people want to know directions to this area, they have to say it's by that church, the big church next to Jerry Louder Drive. He will always be remembered now. And I just want to say thank you again, we the family. I want to say thank you again to Mayor Loveridge, as I remember when my mom made the call to talk to him about this. And he said, yes, we'll find the street. It's so apropos that the street sits right here. And it's beautiful.
Amen.
It changes the whole landscape of the area, just as it would if he were standing here smiling right now.
Amen.
My Father. Thanks again, Riverside. And thank you, Mayor Loveridge.